Hi, I'm Brianna Moskis from the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington. You can find us at fabricpatch.net, and today we're going to be doing the Father's Day Celebrate the Seasons panel together. We're going to do Flying Geese, the no waste method, featuring the Lazy Girl Flying Geese no math ruler. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we started with, again, there's a free downloadable pattern on the link below, or visit our website at fabricpatch.net, and you can find all of the Celebrate the Season panels as well as all of the patterns we've done thus far. So what we're going to start with is we're going to trim our panel up. So it's quite a large panel. Remember, if this is your first time watching, maybe travel back to some of our past ones if you are having questions about trimming up your panel, or anything like that. And again, all of those videos are linked below or on our website, or of course anywhere on our YouTube channel. So we are going to be trimming our panel to 22.5 inches wide by 26 inches long. They've just all been this size, just make it nice and easy and simple as we go along throughout the year. And again, you'll have half of your panel left. That'll make a perfect backing, maybe a matching pillowcase, or whatever you might need for the perfect Father's Day gift. So what I started with first, I did trim my panel to the 22.5 by 26.5, and then I went ahead and I cut 3 2-inch strips for this quick little border, just to kind of offset it. I think this is really cool, and I really want it to stand out against the Flying Geese. So I went ahead and put a simple little 2-inch border all the way around it before I get to the Flying Geese. So speaking of Flying Geese, there's a couple ways that you can do them. So you will also find linked below, and also in the Celebrate the Season section, is a couple different ways on how to make Flying Geese. So there is a specific cutting triangles. I do not like this one. You'll find this in some of the older quilting magazines. People might still have you template cut triangles out. I typically do not like doing it that way because there's a whole lot of bias involved, which adds stretch and wonkiness, and you might be creating kites instead of geese. So the first option, not my favorite, but if you are a seasoned quilter or a quilter that has done Flying Geese this way, this might be the way of choice. Way 2 is cutting a rectangle and putting squares in to make your Flying Geese. Traditionally, that'll how a lot of patterns do it. It's simple cutting, and it is a simple piecing. A little bit of waste is involved in that way. If you want to see that one, I'm sure we have some past videos on that one. Or starting in July, we are starting our Westport block of the month, and we will be doing some of the blocks doing this a second cut square and rectangle Flying Geese technique. So watch out for that, and maybe that will help you make some of your Flying Geese. The one we are going to do today is the no waste method. So I will give you all of the measurements you need, or those of you that might have the Flying Geese no math ruler, I'll be demonstrating how to use this ruler. I know a lot of you have purchased this ruler from us. Hopefully you have cracked open and you have used it. If you have not, I'm going to show you today how cool it is and how to use it just to make your Flying Geese. So let's get started on the Flying Geese. Okay, so we're going to use, again, the Flying Geese no math ruler by Lazy Girl. I'm going to put this little piece of blue fabric. This, of course, was the cutoff piece just from trimming up our panel. But hopefully you'll be able to see it a little. Oh, you can see it a little better. Okay, so what we're going to do, I just want to show you a little bit about the ruler. So in your little package, I think this is like a $25-ish ruler. Now, I'm not really a gadget girl. I'm not one of those people that are going to spend money on a ruler that's just going to do one thing for me. I really like this one ruler to do a whole lot of things. But the really nice thing about this ruler is it does all the math for you. You can cut it all out, and you don't even have to remember where this special little piece of paper is. It's also all written right onto your ruler. But if you do keep this, if you have this in a safe place, pinned on a bulletin board, or you just have a safe place for all of these things, there is a step-by-step instructions on how to use this ruler, how to create these Flying Geese blocks, and even how to use this ruler to make half square triangles and quarter square triangles. So super cool. So this is the ruler we're demonstrating, but I'll give you, again, the measurements if you just want to sew along using the no waste method. So when you look at this ruler, right up front, of course, it's going to say everything you need to know. It also has Lazy Girl's website on here. They have tutorials and other things you can look at to maybe help you, and also patterns using this ruler that is strictly geese, half square triangles, and quarter square triangles. You'll also notice you have solid lines and an alphabet on the left and the top of your ruler, and you also have dotted lines over here with the coordinating alphabet and numbers. So what you need to know is the solid line, you're going to cut 1 square of the solid line pieces, and that's going to be what your goose is. So if we look at a flying geese unit here, it is the white right here. So whatever your goose is. In our case, our goose is going to be this pretty brown color that's going to match the football and other accent pieces on our panel. And the dotted line, you're going to cut 4 squares, and that's going to be your background. So on this case, it's the dark purple is going to be your background. Today, we're going to be using the gray as our background. What you need to know is this number here next to the solid line, that is going to represent your finished block size. So we're going to aim today for 2.5 by 5 for a couple reasons. If you are going to use the traditional square and rectangle method, it would be really cool. You could use like a charm pack and have a lot of colorful geese if you want to. So we're going to do the 2.5 by 5 finished goose. So we're going to be using solid line H and dotted line H. So let's go ahead and get to the cutting. We're going to start with our goose color first. Okay, so like every cutting, we want to make sure whatever we're using, we want to make sure we have a nice straight edge first. So you can use a regular straight ruler to create that straight line, that straight edge, and make sure it's nice and straight. Once it is straight, you are going to take your ruler. I spin it. Oh, this might be hard to see. I'm gonna change just a little bit. I'm gonna use the blue as my goose just for demonstrating purposes so that you can really see the ruler at work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler, oh, much better, and we're going to line up the solid H. Can you see where that H is lined up right here? That solid line right there. So that's our straight line. So there's a couple things you can do. You can mark this with a Frixion pen. You can lay another ruler up and cut from the other side of your cutting counter. Whatever you are most comfortable with. But use this as your guide, your measurements, and all your goodness to cut your goose block. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start a little bit low, line up that H line. I'm just going to cut a little ways. I'm going to scoot my ruler forward, and then what I'm going to do my last cut is I'm going to make sure my H is lined up on the side and also on that bottom straight edge. Or if we're using a full 42-inch wide piece of fabric, that would be my fold, what I would be working with. And then continue to cut. And then we're going to have this big old strip. We're going to then flip it. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find H, and we're going to line it up. So we're going to line H here. And it should, if we cut everything correctly and everything straight, H will be lined up perfectly right here, and it will be perfectly along my ruler on this side. And then again, add pressure and cut. And that is one goose block. One goose block will yield you 4 flying geese units. So continue to cut those. If you are not using the No Math Flying Geese ruler, what you need to know is you need to cut squares that are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So again, the ruler makes that really nice because those little quarters and anything that's not a full inch or a half inch, those are some can give you a little bit of trouble for cutting. So use the H on your flying geese ruler or cut a 6 1/4 inch square of your goose unit. For your background, what we're going to do, I'll use my background because I feel like we can see this perfectly. We're going to line everything up. So this is just a regular cut of fabric, just like you're going to get at the quilt store. It's 42 inches. There's your fold. I folded it one more time. And again, we're going to be using now the dotted lines, because it's going to say the broken lines. You're going to cut 4, and that's going to be the background of your goose unit. So again, we're going to use the H, and it doesn't matter which H you use. If you use this H or this H, at the end of the day, as long as you're using both lines at the end, we're going to come out with an appropriate size piece. So we're going to just go ahead and cut a full strip. Here's our H. And again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually use the L right here as my straight edge on the bottom. And then I'm going to line my H up right here. And I'm just going to cut a little bit, shimmy my ruler, make sure that line's straight, cut, make sure everything's nice and flat, shimmy, cut, one last time. And again, what I'm doing is there's this solid line that runs right here. It's actually the J solid line. Now I know it's straight because it's on the ruler, so I'm going to just line that straight line on the fold of my fabric to make sure I'm still straight. Because even though this is only about 11 inches, things could happen in 11 inches. So I'm going to line up that dotted line, make sure that line is straight against the fold, and finish that cut. And then we've got our strip for our background pieces. Those of you that are not using the ruler, your strip will need to be 3 3/8. And we will be cutting 3 3/8 inch squares. Now again, you will need 4 squares to make your flying geese units. And again, it tells you right on the ruler, we're going to cut 1 square and we're going to cut 4 squares. Your 1 large square is your goose unit, and your 4 smaller squares are your background units. So again, we're going to work on the dotted side. We're going to go ahead and use Straighten Up Our Goodness, cutting off our selvage, making a nice straight line to start. And we're going to use, again, the H. The other thing you can do to help you remember what letter you are using, use your Wet Erase Expo marker and then just circle the letter we're supposed to be using. Because again, those nice little wet erase markers, they're not going to come off just from rubbing it. It's only going to come off with a damp rag, a lick of the finger, whatever it might be. So if you feel like you need a little help, use that wet erase marker and circle those H's so you never miss what alphabet letter you're using. Okay, so now we're going to do H's. So we're going to line up our H up here, our H down there, and again, it's perfectly straight right here. And again, we need 4 to start this scenario. Again, H, H, cut, and then you will have 1 goose unit and 4 smaller background squares. This here will yield you 4 goose units. And a goose unit, in case that's confusing you, is this little guy right here. That is what I'm calling a goose unit, is that little guy. So again, you can decide how many you would like. I'm just going to go ahead and cut my whole strip up. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the constructing of our blocks. So we're going to start with our 1 large square and our 4 background squares. What we're going to do first is on the background squares, we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a line from point to point. So these are marked. I'm not sure if you can see them, but we're going to just take our good old Frixion marker. Again, the Frixion marker, the ink will disappear with the heat of your iron. So all we're going to do, I'm just using my Lazy Girl Flying Geese ruler. We're using a straight edge. We're going to just pick 2 corners, and we're just going to draw a line from point to point, just like that. And we're going to do those on all 4 of our background squares. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start with taking 2 of them. We're going to line them up right sides together, and we are going to put 1 in the upper left-hand corner and 1 in the lower right-hand corner, making sure that the lines that we have drawn down the middle of our block line up, just like so. And then feel free If you want to, give these a little pin. You will have, if you can see, you'll have these guys, they're gonna overlap just a little bit. Can you see how that overlaps right there? That's how it's supposed to be. It's okay. We're gonna put some pins in here to keep everybody tacked down and tacked together. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew on 1/4 inch on both sides of that line, which will give you something that looks like this. So here is where I drew my center line. Here is my seam on both sides. I don't know if you can see the seam better on that side or not, but you can see that I've sewn 1/4 inch on both sides, making sure all of that overlapped and laid real nicely. After you've done that, we're gonna cut these two apart. And that's gonna give you something that looks like this. Looks a little hokey, I know. It's crazy, but it's gonna work out. And it's amazing how there is 0 waste. You're gonna use every bit of every square. So we're gonna cut that apart, yielding these two bad boys. I went ahead and pressed one for you, and he's gonna look like this. He looks a little rough. He looks like a heart gone wrong. You'll notice that your seam that you've done is like right at that point. Can you see that right there? That is perfectly okay. This hokey looking heart is exactly what you're looking for. You're gonna get, of course, 2 of those once you're done pressing. Once you're at this point, you're going to take both of those guys and you're gonna take another one of your background squares, and you're gonna, the line that you drew is gonna go from the bottom point down here all the way through the center of that hokey looking heart. And then go ahead, I'm gonna steal this pin, go ahead and give that a pin, and you're gonna do that to both of them. And then what you're gonna do, same thing as before, sew 1/4 inch on both sides of that line. So there's my line that I've drawn with my Frixion pen, and then I've done over 1/4 inch, sewed that, over 1/4 inch, sewed that. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut it apart. Now again, you can use a rotary cutter, you can use a pair of scissors, whatever you are comfortable using, you can use whatever you want to cut these guys apart. And then you're gonna have this. And there is your goose unit. Let me give this a quick press. So this is 1 goose unit, and again, 1 large block and 4 small blocks are gonna yield you 4 of these bad boys. The only waste we have are these little dog ears. So you can see there's a little waist right there, a little waist up here, and a tiny waist right here. I go ahead and snip those off. You can again snip them off with a sharper pair of scissors or your rotary cutter. Oh, these are like, yeah, these are definitely thread snips, not dog ear snips. And that's it. There is no trimming. So I'll show you one more time. Trimming those dog ears, super slick. So again, we can make as many of these as we want. It's entirely up to you how you want your finished border to look. Okay, so now that we have our geese in the making, you can do again as many as you want. If you need measurements to do any of the other methods that you would like, again, check out the pattern that is linked below. It is a free downloadable pattern. It's available anytime, and it gives you the measurements in case you're not going to use the no waste method. If you want to do the traditional square and rectangle, those measurements are in there, and the triangle ones, let us know if you'd like a template and we can send you a digital copy of a template to cut out your individual triangles. So with these geese, again, do as many as you want. I am very much someone who likes asymmetrical. It doesn't all have to line up. But we are just going to lay these bad boys out in any kind of which way we would like. In any denomination, we could do 3 here, 4 here, 2 somewhere in the middle. It's just a whole bunch of fun geese all the way around. So I'm going to do some playing and then we'll get to sewing it all together. Okay, so they're all kind of up. I might make a few more. I might change it up so it's only really on 2 corners. But I think the little geese units are really, really cute. So now all you have to do is decide your layout. Now you can make a whole bunch of geese, so it's just a whole bunch of rotating, migrating, flying geese, all you want. It is entirely up to you. I kind of like this almost on the curve kind of one. You can see you could do it where it would stop there and your next one would start here and you would just have your good old solid square. You could make that even the cool blue piece if you wanted to. You could use some of your scraps up. It's entirely up to you. I just kind of like that look. It's a little different, a little more on that asymmetrical side. That's kind of where I like to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this all be gray. My goose unit, again, is 5.5 inches wide. So I'm going to cut a 5.5 inch strip and have that there. So you'll see, kind of, sort of. So I'll have a large kind of border of gray to go where those geese aren't. So I really like that. Again, it's up to you, however you want to, whether your geese are all different colors because you're using a charm pack or you just want to make it sparkly. Maybe you've decided you want to use what's supposed to be your back, you know, quote unquote supposed to be. No rules, of course. You can use this as your geese, this as your background. It doesn't matter. And then change whatever you want up to make it just for you or just for your Father's Day gift, whoever you're giving it to, or if you're putting outside your house. So let's go ahead and sew our geese units together, and then we'll show you it all wrapped up. I want to show you one quick thing when you're sewing your geese units together. Again, right sides together, making sure they're all pointing the same direction. But let me show you something that will help your sewing so that your points come out every single time. Okay, let me get some of my confetti out of the way here. So here are 2 more pieces we have to sew together. So again, make sure they're all flying in the same direction. If you don't care that they're flying in the same direction, more power to you. Totally up to you. But when you do right sides together, I always sew with the triangle piece on top. So you see how we have this just flat color piece on one side, and then we're going to sew through that point on the other side. I always have this guy up. The reason why, while I am sewing, oops, wrong direction, I'm again using my 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to start from one end and then we're going to get to here. Can you see where the X is created when we create that flying geese unit? I'm going to go over it with my Frixion pen. Maybe it'll stand out a little bit more for you. So that seam that we made when we created our units creates this really cool X. I make sure when I'm sewing, I go right through that X. I might not go like dead on it, maybe a thread's width past it, and keep on sewing my 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can see I did the same thing on this one. Same thing, right down the middle. Then what that gives you is you know right where that point is. See how that point just comes out perfect? That's because I know at the right in the middle of that X, that's where my point is. So I know if my 1/4 inch is way over here and I'm going to blunt that point, I have 2 options. One, have a, you know, beakless goose. No big deal. I'm sure they're out there. Or you know that let's maybe put this one in the scrap bin and or the dog bed basket, whatever you might be doing with all of your orphan pieces, and let's remake this one unit. So it's really, that's just a really cool tip when you're sewing those together, is use that X that you've already sewn as a vantage point for you. Okay, and there you have it. So it's all sewn together. If you really like this kind of 3/4 of the way turn that I did here, this little measurement right here is 3 inches wide by 5.5 inches long. So that's that little measurement on this corner and on this corner. Or of course you can just do your full-on 5.5 inch square and create that turn there. So however you'd like. So again, you can do as many or as few flying geese as you'd like, and then you have that nice finished border and you're ready to back it, quilt it, and gift it or hang it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot. Please feel free to comment below, email, call the shop if you have any questions. And have a great Father's Day this year, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.